This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast. You're watching episode 12, and we do have a treat in store for us today. We have Nancy Cross of Cross Team Realty in Wesley Chapel. Hey, Nancy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for being on. This is kind of a long overdue thing. We've done something similar to this before, but this is actually the polished up version of what we've done previously. So this will hopefully be really good for the listeners. I know you always have great information about the market and some of the things that are going on in Wesley Chapel. Before we get started, I do like to take a second just to talk about what the Good Neighbor Podcast is, what we are, how we do what we do, and how we make this happen. So in 2020, the Good Neighbor Podcast started in Southwest Florida, and it kind of was birthed out of COVID. When we were all doing our social distancing, we needed a way for businesses to be able to get in front of residents in the community and other businesses to make them aware of what was going on and still keep that social distancing. And it works well in conjunction with what we do in the publications. And how we do this, it's super informal. We're just going to have a little conversation here about the things that are going on, talk a little bit about you and talk a little bit about the market, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So the first question we always like to start off with, because the most important thing is your business. Tell us a little bit about Cross Team Realty.
Sure. So Cross Team Realty has been around since 2002. And so we live and work in Wesley Chapel, New Tampa, Lutz, and Land O'Lakes. And I handle the residential side of our business. My husband, Paul, handles the commercial side of our business. So we do pretty much most real estate except for property management.
And what about stuff like, and I believe I know the answer to this, but Paul also does like industrial real estate as well, right? Like if it's warehousing and space like that?
Yes, that's correct. He also focuses on medical office buildings, land sales, and development.
Excellent. And then, tell the listeners a little bit about your journey. I know you and Paul are from different places, and you guys have traveled all over the world and been in a bunch of different cities. Tell us a little bit about your journey and then how you ended up. I know you had like a past career life, how you ended up getting into real estate and why it's your passion.
Yeah. So, yes, I'm originally from just outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. Paul is originally from London, so he's got one of those gorgeous accents, which is one of the reasons why. Yes,
I can attest to it. He does have a very nice accent.
We actually got a listing one time just because of the accent. It was great. So
hey, whatever works, whatever gets the job done.
That's right. So in my prior career, I was in information systems, doing IT networking, and that's actually where I met Paul because we both worked for the DuPont company in Wilmington, Delaware. And so fast forward, I started there. I think I worked at DuPont for 14 years and then went into independent consulting. And I moved down to Florida in 2000. And right at 2001, of course, we know what happened in September of 2001. Yep. And the group that I was with, we had a team of people in the towers. Luckily, all of them made it out safely. But IT consulting at that point took a nosedive. So for me to stay in that career, I would either have to move again or travel. And at the time, my son was 12 years old. I thought, I just can't uproot him again and move somewhere else in the country. So I thought, what am I going to do? And real estate is something that I had been interested in. I've been an investor, a landlord, so I understand that aspect of it. But I've relocated myself 2-3 times, bought and sold homes. And so real estate was something that I really had a passion for. And I felt that my background in IT and in project management could really be a benefit to my customers in real estate. And it has been.
And I was just going to say, and it is because I have worked with you personally. And, one of the knocks on salespeople for in my profession in publishing and salespeople is we can be a little bit disorganized. My background is that financial background. So it does give an added value to your service where, not that other real estate agents aren't, good at what they do, but when you have that project management background where everything is kind of task driven and you go through that process to get somebody to the finish line, because that's really what it is, right? Like, you get a listing. Yeah, that's great. That's like the starting point. Now it's, hey, how do we get them to the finish line and close this thing? And having that background definitely helps. It definitely made it a lot easier in the transactional process for us when we worked with you. So that is a great added value that you bring to the table for your clients, which is definitely a step up.
Thank you.
So can I ask you, the market is so crazy, right? Like, especially here in Tampa. So we have tons of people coming in and out from all over the country, California, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. They all want to come here. There's no state tax. Tampa's a great market. And there was a stretch of time, probably about 18 months ago, where you couldn't put a listing on the market. And it was like the listing went out on Thursday. There was an open house on Saturday. And it was like, we're only accepting offers till noon on Monday. And if you don't come with cash and $30,000 over asking price, you're not even going to get into the conversation. Yeah. That market has changed, yes. But debunk a myth. Like, is it true that the market is dried up? Like, where do we currently stand in the market so the listeners listening to this can understand, hey, we're not in a bear market, we're not in a bull market, but this is what the housing market looks like timing wise and things like that.
Right. We're somewhere weirdly in between that.
Okay.
So let me explain. And most people will understand economics comes down to supply and demand. So where we are at the moment is there are so many people that have either refinanced or purchased their homes in the last several years where they have, if they're lucky enough to get 2% interest rates or somewhere in there, but they've got, in the threes, that a lot of people are saying, if I sell my house now, I'm paying 6+% in interest.
Right.
Where am I going to go? I can't afford my own house that I'm living in now. Where would I go? So sellers are holding back on selling their homes, and the buyers, yes, we do have quite a few out there, but that inventory of homes has shrunk. And the buyers that are there has also shrunk because there's not as many people that can qualify at a 7% loan or 6% loan as there is at a 3% loan.
Right.
So the whole market has kind of slowed. That decrease in inventory, in addition to, we still have 849 people a day moving into the state of Florida, not just Tampa Bay, but all of Florida. So that's still a pretty big influx. And real estate is still hyper local. It's location, location, location. The great school districts, the great communities, those are still seeing the really high demand where you put a house in the market. It may go, if it's priced well, so you can't ask, $1 million for a 200, right, exactly. Right. But if it's priced well, it shows well, it will go quickly.
So we're in Pasco County, where we're based out of is Pasco County in Wesley Chapel. And the point that you just brought up about the good schools and all that, is there an emerging area? Like, I know I work a lot out in West Pasco, like near Trinity and Odessa and out that way. Is there an emerging area that if I'm a buyer, if I'm going to be in the buyers, a buyer in the market here in the next year, hypothetically, if I know anybody that might be a buyer in the market, where's the emerging area that if I could get into it now, that growth is kind of happening, that I would get in early?
Oh my gosh.
Do I have to go a little further north to like Hernando or Citrus County?
There are areas that are really growing. Trinity is one of those areas. Wesley Chapel, certainly, if you've been out down 56 out toward 301, is just
huge.
New community after new community. And Spring Hill, Brooksville, that whole area is starting to really emerge. So, in fact, I was just up showing property in Hernando County in Brooksville last weekend, and I was surprised. I was able to show a 3,100 square foot home, 6 bedrooms, and it was under $400,000.
Wow.
So if you're interested, call me. I'll show you where that is.
Yeah, if you want to know where that house is, call Nancy. We'll have her number.
Call me.
So the other thing too that's kind of an interesting thing in the real estate market is I've been hearing all about, and maybe I'm just behind on the times here, but the new area, like 50, 52 and 41, they're building like a whole Moffitt campus up that way, about north of Connerton and
Oh,
Land
yes, yes,
O'Lakes.
yes. Yeah.
Angeline or
Angeline.
Angeline.
Yeah.
So I mean, that area, from what I hear, is kind of jumping up too. Like there's so much growth up in that area. I would think for Paul with
Yes.
medical facilities, there's always a
Mm-hmm.
hospital goes in, and there's always those peripheral offices that are
All
gobbled up
those
around there.
offices. Mm-hmm. That's
Wow.
absolutely correct. Yeah.
So okay. So I mean, overall though, the market, while it has slowed down, it's still a pretty robust market for people coming in and looking. It's just got to be the right person, and you can't overprice
Right.
your property.
Right. Tampa Bay is one of those areas in the country that is still appreciating. There are other areas across the country that the prices are coming down, things are falling off. It's taken forever to sell homes, that kind of thing. But here in Tampa Bay, it is still really popular. We are growing like crazy, and people are moving here.
Great. That's good. That's good news. Except if I'm a buyer in the market, now I know I have to wait for that interest rate. I mean, everybody says the same thing, right? Like, hey, look, the interest rate is 6% right now. It's not going to continue to stay that way, hopefully. So if you buy now, you bite the bullet for a year or two until whatever's going to happens in the climate, and then you just refinance it in year 3, and you end up making out okay. So that's kind of, I guess, the battle cry for realtors and you folks to say, hey, look, it's still a good time to buy. You just got to refinance in 3 years and get your rate back down to maybe not to 2 or 3, but come back down to earth a little bit from 6.
Right, exactly. So if you think about it, Mike, if the prices continue to appreciate the way they have been, even if the interest rates come down to 5 over the next 2 years,
right,
the home values have gone up. So you've lost any difference, any gain that you've made. So, exactly. So if you get in now and then refinance later, that's
you're
a good
getting the
strategy.
appreciation, and then you're redoing the rate.
Right. So let me tell you one little piece of interesting information, not to really date myself, but my first house in 1985.
Okay.
And for any of your folks out there, listeners or viewers,
11% interest.
Try 15.75% interest rate. That was my interest rate on my very first house.
But the house was probably $32,000. I mean, like I know my parents used to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
My dad wanted this Jeep Grand Wagoneer in the late 80s. He paid $32,000 for it. My mother would always say, our house was $27,000 in 1972. So the car 15 years later was more than the house. So yeah, the interest rates were higher, but the home values, I mean, it's just a different, the real estate market's crazy. And it's just crazy, especially here, the way it's blown up, the appreciation.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's true. And on average, over the last 30 some years that they've been tracking mortgage rates, the average interest rate is around 7 to 7.5. That's the average interest rate. So we're not too, the sky is not falling. It's all good.
You know what happens, Nancy? It's perception, right? So like
that's exactly
you come from that house in 1985 with a 15% interest rate, and you at 7 right now are saying, hey, look, I've seen worse. But when you're somebody new into the market, this newer, I guess it's millennials, I don't know what that generation is, that is now buying homes, and they saw 2-3% rates for 5 years or whatever. They're in that ballpark for several years, and now they see 6 and 7, and they're going, like the sky is falling. It's their perception.
The sky for them is falling. Yeah, we have an entire generation of buyers that have never known the interest rates above 5%. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. I'm not going to date myself. I mean, the gray hair in here should date me for me. But if this is only on audio, I don't have any gray hair. I have a very full black beard on my face. But if the video gets out, then people will see that I am totally lying. So we talked about the market. We talked about what you do for work and your business. Tell us a little bit about, like, let's get relatable, Nancy. I mean, I saw a picture of you on the internet sitting in a chair that was shaped like a butt. That's funny. But what do you do for fun? What do you and Paul do when you're not working, when you guys go out and hang out and let off steam?
What does Nancy do? Paul and Nancy do for fun? We actually have a lot of fun. We like to hang out with friends. So one of our big things is we have a group of friends that over the last 20 some years, we've got together once a month and tried a different restaurant between Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco County, and we try not to do the same restaurant. That has been a lot of fun. And then,
Is
of
that
course,
a
we solve the
friend?
problems of the world.
Oh yes, I'm sure over an adult beverage or two, every problem in the world gets solved. So
Exactly.
that brings up a great point. So I know of a couple magazines in the Wesley Chapel, Hillsborough, that are looking for someone to do food reviews every month. So there might be another
I will
calling there
volunteer.
for somebody to do that. So we'll have to discuss that with my I would say she's my right hand person, but she's actually right and left hand person is Maggie, and we will maybe talk about that for something to do for the publications, because we're trying to get some different points of view instead of having one person do it all the time. Kind of mix it up, and if you have a little group of people, that'd be a great opportunity for people to get involved. We'd love that. So excellent. So now that we've talked about work and we've talked about fun and food and solving the world's problems, give the listeners, I mean, you live in the Ridge, and this is going to go out through Pasco County and all over Tampa and all over the internet. But people who are listening to this from a relatable standpoint, everybody's had their obstacles to overcome in life. For you, what would you say is a hardship or an obstacle that you faced? And it could be career change. It could be, any type of thing. Where you came out the other side of it and you were able to turn the lemons into lemonade, and it made you stronger and got growth out of it.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So I told you I've been in this business for 20 some years.
Right.
21 years.
22.
Since 2002. So in that time, we went through a little incident between 2008 to 2010.
Yeah.
And that market crash really hit us hard, as it did many people.
Right.
I knew realtors that lost every investment property that they had, went into bankruptcy, that kind of thing. I was fortunate enough at the time to work for a broker who made sure in 2007 saw this coming and had us all trained on how to handle short sales. So did we make it out unscathed? No, we did not. We were one of those short sales. Paul and I had to sell our house. We lived over in Richmond Place. And at the time we went through that, we had $75,000 in credit card debt trying to keep the business going.
Right.
I thought, oh, Lord, I was daily prayers. Please let us make it through. And we started focusing on short sales. And I think between 2008 to 2010, we closed over 200 short sales. And to me, that's 200 people we saved from foreclosure.
100%.
And it's also helped us stay afloat through that time.
Right.
And so we were able to thankfully pay off all that credit card debt, get our house sold, and rebuild and move on. And I would say coming through all of that, because if anybody has ever gone through a short sale, you know how complicated that can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that having to go through all of those complications and those different situations has made me a better realtor. Made me a better negotiator. I better understand what the seller goes through.
Right.
Because it's not always, somebody relocates or they got a job promotion. Sometimes it really is a very difficult situation.
It's one of those things. It's almost like, and it's kind of not a great analogy, but it's like a vet, someone who serves in the armed forces. There's people that serve during peacetime, and there's people that serve during wartime. And there's a totally different outlook on those two veterans. Both serve, both are veterans. We're 100% in support of veterans, but it's a different type of service. And when you go through that type of thing, and then you get out of that, and then 10 years later, you're in COVID when everybody's on lockdown, like there have been some battle scars for people in our age range, career-wise, whether it's, that stuff kind of happening. So having the ability to pivot when that stuff goes on is really what separates. I mean, I'm sure, like I've told you, I've had my real estate license since 1995. It never was a thing that I didn't get I see when I talk to you and I hear you speak about real estate, I can see the passion on your face. I can see how much it means to you. for me, it just never resonated that way. So it's like one of those things where when you have that passion and you're in that field, and then all these things are getting thrown at you, and you can adapt with the times, that makes you a more well-rounded and a better performer for your clients, and and makes your career more fulfilling, because you have this ability to, no matter what gets thrown at you, you're like, all right, I've seen that, I've done that. You can kind of get through it, which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we kind of come towards the end of this here, I guess one of the big questions I have is, what differentiates the Cross team from Jane Smith Real Estate? What's the one thing we need listeners to take away if they're going to remember nothing else? If they're going to remember nothing else from this conversation, what do they need to know about you and Paul and Cross Team Realty that nobody else has?
Well, I would say the combination of the commercial experience and the residential, as well as the international experience, because Paul has worked internationally. He's worked in Japan, he's worked in the UK, he's worked in Germany. So we understand the international market as well. And we really, truly do care about our clients. We care about what's best for them, and we put our clients first. But I think that experience that we have, coming up through the last 21 years of selling property, marketing property, negotiating, the international experience, dealing with, H-1 visas, E-2 visas, all those kinds of things, that experience is really what sets us apart.
Well, I'm going to add one testimonial to that, because I can tell you, for me, having you listed one of my properties, the thing that was a differentiator for me in that whole process was this. The house is an older house, but it's a fairly clean house. There wasn't a lot there was a couple things that were outdated, but that wasn't really the issue. The buyer came in, and there was a list of what I looked at as kind of tedious punch lists to go through. And if you're listening, I called Nancy and I said, Nancy, what the heck is going on? This seems a little silly. Why don't we just take an extra $2,000 off the price of the house, be done with it, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of went through my little hissy fit. And Nancy said, Mike,
Mark the eye roll.
What's that?
And I'm on the other end of the phone with the eye roll going.
Yeah, right. Come on, you big baby. You're 6 foot, 230-pound giant baby. So, but again, what came through the phone was, Mike, listen, I got this. We'll do this, 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 and this. We'll take care of it. It'll take a week. We'll have it done. Don't worry about it. I got it. The I got it from Cross Team Realty made it so much easier to be able to not stress about the stuff that's going on. So that's my testimonial. If anybody wants to take something away from this conversation from my end, from real world experience working with Nancy and her team, she's got it. So you don't really have to stress about some of the small, but it's not small stuff when you're going through it, but it's really the small stuff universally.
It really is the small stuff.
It really is. I mean, but you know what, like anybody else, when it's my problem, it's the hugest problem. When it's somebody else's problem, it's a little problem. What are you worried about? It take care of itself. But when I'm in the middle of it, and when buyers or sellers are in the middle of it, it's nice to hear that calm voice on the other end of the phone that says, listen, we got this. So that's my testimonial for you. And
Thank you.
And I guess the $1 million question, I mean, I hope it's $1 million question for you, is how do listeners get a hold of you? How do they email, phone, website? What's the best way to get you?
The best way to for your real estate dreams, don't get antsy. Just call Nancy.
There it is. There it is. I knew it was coming at one time. Awesome. So what we'll do also when we put this out is we will put all your contact information in there. Your website's crossteamrealty.com.
Crossteamresidential.com.
Residential.com. Sorry. Crossteamresidential.com. Nancy's phone number, all her contact information will be in there. And if for all your real estate dreams, don't get antsy, just call Nancy. So I got it right. Nancy, thank you so much for being on the Good Neighbor podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You guys have a great weekend. I don't want to say what day it is. I'm just going to say it's towards the weekend. We don't know what day it is when this is actually going to air. Nancy, thank you so much. I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Passcode. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnppasco.com. That's gnppasco.com or call 813-922-3610.